let me introduce them to you. Where's Al? Come on, Al. You were supposed to be the first one up because you're alphabetically number one, but this is Al Angus, everybody. On my right is John Glover. To the end, third from my left, is the incumbent mayor, the current mayor of Queenstown Lakes, Glenn Lewis, and on the end of the line is Nick Kiddle. So those are the four candidates we have here. Darren Riwi and Daniel Shand, for reasons best known to themselves, have decided not to join us this evening. Now the basic format of tonight is that very soon I will release the polling results from the Taxpayers Union Curia poll on the Queenstown Lakes District Mayoralty, a poll which was taken in recent days. Then we will ask each of the candidates to do a 2 to 3 minute introduction for themselves and make effectively a campaign speech to say a few of their policies, to tell us why they should be elected the Mayor of Queenstown Lakes. Then there'll be a series of questions from me, and then an opportunity for the audience to ask some questions, and then some closing statements from the candidates. But first I'd like to tell you about the poll, which was conducted by, I'm sorry, a bit too many chairs and the like here, conducted by the Curia Polling Company on behalf of the Taxpayers Union. 500 respondents agreed to participate, adults 18 years of age and over, living in the Queenstown Lakes District. 500 respondents agreed to participate. Multiple callbacks occurred to maximise the response rate. Based on this sample, the maximum sampling error is plus or minus 4.4% at the 95% confidence level. So let's go through some of the results. Unfortunately, we don't have them available on the screen tonight, so I'll just have to tell you about them verbally. The first question was the general direction of Queenstown Lakes. Going in the right direction, 28%. Unsure, 13%. Going in the wrong direction, 59%. Queenstown Lakes District Council performance. 16% very poor. 42% poor. 31% average. Good, 6%. Very good, 3%. Unsure, 3%. A pretty constant theme is emerging here. To candidate name recognition, Daniel Shand recognised by 3% of the respondents. Darren Riwi recognised by 11%. Glenn Lewis 13%. Nick Kiddle 5%. John Glover 10%. And Al Angus 3%. The mayoral voting intention, effectively who's likely to win if an election were held today or when this survey was taken. Al Angus at 1%, Nick Kiddle at 2%, Daniel Shand at 2%, John Glover at 4%, Darren Riwi at 6%, Glenn Lewis leading the poll with 11%, won't vote 3%, and the winner by a whopping majority, Mr. Undecided at 71%. Let's just say it's quite an open contest. I've never seen such an undecided figure in looking at political polls going back for heaven knows how many decades. Support for this year's rates rise. 63% said unnecessary, 22% said necessary, 15% were unsure, and support for rates capping, again, pretty much one-way traffic. 77% say support, 9% say oppose, and 13% were unsure. So massive support for rates capping around the Queenstown Lakes ratepayers who were surveyed. So that's the results of our survey, of our Taxpayer Union carry a poll which basically says we have a very open contest amongst the mayoral candidates. So it's a chance for them tonight to push their case a little more and see if they can attract any more votes and get Mr. Undecided votes down. So we'll start firstly with the candidate introduction. 4 of them can speak for 2.5 to 3 minutes. We'll ring the bell at 3 minutes and we'll ring it quite vigorously if you get to 4. So we don't want you going on too late, guys. So we'll go in alphabetical order, and that means that Mr. Angus, you can open the batting. Here we are, Al. Go for it.
Thank you. Thanks for the 1%, Basil. That was great. I'm Al Angus from up the head of the lake. I've been here about 50 odd years, and this is the most critical election we've ever had, in my opinion. You know, we're in an absolute state. It's quite hard not to swear for me these days in here. We cannot fix the district's problems with broken council. It's just an absolute train wreck, according to me. My billboard states the people that need to go quite clearly. I have no, I make no apologies for that. I've watched how they've run over the years. So we need fresh blood, fresh ideas, and I don't have all the answers. I don't need them, because if you put me in there, I'm taking you with me. You know, it's going to be a complete change to what we've had. I was talking to a reputable journalist the other day, apparently, and I said to him, when was the last time that the council went with public submissions? He couldn't remember it, and he thought for a while. Then he said, actually, I'm the journalist, I meant to ask the question. So I asked another guy that I know that goes line for line through everything the council goes. He couldn't say when it was either. Mr. Lewis might be able to, but we're just being absolutely ignored at every turn, you know, so it's got to stop. I'm now on the Superann. It takes 6 weeks of my Superann to pay Teelan 1.5 days. You know, there's something really unbalanced about that, and I'm working reasonably hard. I'm not working particularly hard. I didn't get a $64,000 wage increase this year, but I mean, you know, I work reasonably hard. It just goes on and on and on and on, and yeah, that'll do me. Christ, I've said enough.
Thank you, Al. All right, number 2 in the alphabetical is
Come on.
G comes before K. I was going to go down to Nick, but John Glover.
Thanks, Peter. Good evening, everyone. I'm John Glover, and I'd love you all to vote for me to be your mayor, and to the 71% that aren't decided, let's vote for me. I've been in this district for 25 years. Many of you will know me. I'm a small business owner operator, and you know, we've been here through thick and thin. You know, from SARS through to the GFC through to COVID. And you know, the one great thing about being at the head of the lake is, unlike all of these businesses here, we didn't have to boil our water for several months through Cryptosporidium. And it is really, really hard making ends meet, whether you're in business, working for yourself, whether you're retired, or just being in town. And you know, in business, we have to go through line by line by line and work out what is essential, what is necessary, what don't we have to do. You know, are we getting a fair price for it? And what I want to do is bring that financial oversight into council. And the difference between myself and Mr. Lewis is Mr. Lewis will tell you you can't do any more to save money. I completely disagree with that. I'm meeting people every day whilst I'm out on the hustings who are telling me how expensive it is for the things that council are paying for. I even met somebody yesterday who said they'd offered to come to council and help them save money, and they were rejected. So that needs to change. That can change on October the 11th if the undecided 71% decide they would like better value out of their rates. My rates, $6,500 a year for my house in Frankton. You know, do the maths. What's that going to, you know, each week, and how many hours somebody needs to work just to pay their rates? And that's before the water rates, and that's before all the increases we're going to get when the power goes up and everything else. So financial discipline, absolutely essential. It doesn't mean slashing staff. It doesn't mean grovelling to government for a handout. We get our own house in order. We know how to do it, and that's the most important thing that we need to decide going forward. The rates are going to go exponential, and unless we get on top of it now, we're in the poo, literally.
Thank you, John. Down to the end of the line, and Nick Kiddle is number 3. K4L.
Yeah, K4L. Oh, well, thank you very much, Peter. Look, it's great to be amongst the Taxpayer Union here. I've been a solid supporter of the Taxpayer Union for many years now, and I'd really like to bring the fiscal and financial discipline objective of the Taxpayers Union into the office of the Mayor, so that we don't face 50% rate increases like we just did over the last 3 years. On average, 50% our rates went up, near the top of the charts nationally. And my property got a 50% annual increase from the Otago Regional Council, just in 1 year. So this is a big deal for us. We've got to bring this back. Now, I've been using this campaign to highlight the fact that we need to choose a candidate that has the best skills for the job. And there are a couple of things that job's going to have to focus on. The first is we've got to get a way better deal out of Wellington so that our ratepayer base is not covering the cost of everything that we need to do here. We need to negotiate with central government to get money out of central government for infrastructure, for healthcare, and for roading. I come from 25 years of central government experience. I was a diplomat for 23 years, ambassador to Poland, deputy ambassador to the United Nations. I have worked with ministers of the Crown and Cabinet for over 2.5 decades. I know how to get stuff done in Wellington. I know which buttons to push. I can deliver on objectives that we absolutely have to secure here. The other thing, of course, that we have to do, the Mayor, whoever it is going to have to restructure the council. And the council is going to be restructured because it's already been decided that all of the water resources are going to be moved out of there. This is a golden opportunity to find some savings. And the interesting thing about the decision to establish a CCO for water is there's no commentary on savings. And there needs to be. So we need to right-size that council. We need fresh vision, fresh leadership, and fresh energy to do that. Because unless we replace the leadership of the council, we're going to get mired in the status quo. We're going to have a fresh leader to take us out of the status quo. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Nick. And to complete the opening statements, the incumbent Mayor, Glyn Lewis. Glyn.
Thank you, Peter. Welcome all. I'm Glyn Lewis. I'm your incumbent Mayor, and I am seeking re-election for the next 3 years. I'm a father of 2. I've got 2 teenage boys, 16 and 13, both going to local schools here, and I have a wonderful partner, Prue, who runs an online e-commerce business as well. Look, I won't make any bones about it. It's been a tough 3 years. Within the first 3 weeks, this council had to decide on a leaky building claim that removed 20% of our debt headroom. It was a 9-figure sum. That's right, one number with 8 zeros on the end of it. Thankfully, the government has come to their senses and changed the rules. I was part of a group that was in Wellington. The joint and several liability clause has now been changed to proportional liability. The Minister took that on board and actually made the change recently. That's had a huge impact on what we can do and on the rates impact. It's similar to a natural disaster. That will take 10 years to flush through. If you have a look at our rates, and if you look at the long-term plan, I made the hard decision to pay it forward. Yes, we have had some high rates in my training. They are dropping. Have a look at the long-term plan. By year 6, we are under the rate of inflation, and we're sitting from between 4% down to 2% over the last 5 years of the 10-year plan. That's because I've decided to financially take care of the infrastructure deficit we have now and not lump it on to our kids and our grandkids later on. Regional deals, huge opportunity, massive opportunity, one that I've been working on for the last 18 months. 6 years of strategic work coalesced into 5 pillars. Working with my Mayoral counterpart in CODC and the ORC in coming together and pitching to government. One of 3 that was successful out of 18 pitches. We've been seen in the national government's eyes as the same as Tauranga and Auckland. If we get this right, families will thrive, services will be local, and opportunities will be close. So that is why I'm seeking re-election. The excitement, the hope that we have to make a better future based on the work that we've done over the last 3 years. I want to complete that work, and I ask you humbly to vote for me and bring me back. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. Alrighty, now we'll go to a series of themed questions. The first theme is finance and budget, and the question is, the council manages a budget of hundreds of millions of dollars each year. I think the total income for QLDC is about $280 million through rates and other sources. If elected, what would be your top priority for managing spending, and where do you believe savings or efficiencies could be made? We'll go in alphabetical order again. Al.
Sure, I'm up first.
Yeah?
Right, we need to get value for money for a start, you know, and when I see the contractors and all the people doing nothing up the hill, and we're paying for it over and over and over and over. So when
With the mic closer to your mouth,
when
Al.
Cooper first started contracting out, we were getting 95 cents in the dollar work completed. He ran his pen, his ruler over it 3 years ago when Bolt was standing for the second time. He worked it out at 25% work completed per dollar we're paying contractors. And I put that to a guy on the council, one of the engineers in there, and he said, we'd be lucky if we're getting 17%. These aren't pie in the sky numbers. This isn't 2% rates in 30 bloody years. This is what's happening now. So we need that. The consultants, I don't like them, you know, the first 3 letters of that word gives it away. I reckon we can give, you know, a 12-year-old an after-school job with some ChatGPT that can write out those reports just as quick, more efficiently, more true information in them, and less slanted. You know, my guess is a lot of these reports are done by AI now anyway, because I've seen what it can do. I've had some pretty special AI people from France working for me recently. So it's not, you know, we're getting nailed left, right and centre. We're getting nailed from inside the council, outside the council, everywhere. Try and get a park, you know, just the simple stuff. Down here, if you haven't got a Prius and an accent, you can't get a park. You know, we should be allowed to park there.
All right. Thank you, Al. Okay, John, you're next. So where do you believe savings or efficiencies could be made in the QLDC budget?
So if we're spending 270 million a year on general operations, I totally do not believe there is not room to improve the savings there. You know, if we can't shave a % here or a % there, then we're all in the wrong business. Yeah, and that's no disrespect to the people there. It just needs the right type of leadership and the right type of focus. We must save money, and getting better value for money. You know, let's have some oversight. There is no councillor governance. There's no councillor committee that has day-to-day oversight of the operations of that 277 million. So, you know, if something isn't checked, and if there's nobody looking at it, it's not surprising that that budget stays the same and keeps increasing. We don't employ good contract negotiators. You know, we put, you know, basically inexperienced staff in the position of having to deal with top-flight Australian developers, and guess what? We get a really bad deal. So, you know, employing seasoned contract negotiators to do that would be the next thing that I would do. And then just making sure that when we are buying stuff, we're getting a fair price. We're not ripping people off. We don't want people to lose money, but we don't want to be ripped off. We want to get a fair price for everything that we spend, and there's people who are offering to come and help us do that, and I think that's really key, that we listen to our community and we listen to their ideas, and if they want to come and help us save money, I'm all for it.
Very good. Thank you, John. Go down to Nick and put the same question to you. Where do you believe savings or efficiencies could be made on the council budget?
Well, obviously the restructuring of the council gives us this opportunity to work through the budget almost line by line and figure out what's left, what's right size, what we should be paying for it. So that's the first opportunity that we have. We also have the Project Manawa, which I understand from the Mayor just a couple of nights ago, has been put on hold. So that's the council headquarters building, which is very good news. Well, it's one that needs, I've misunderstood, maybe the Mayor said it slightly differently, but that's something that needs to be put on hold. That's a $60 million liability. And we've got to hold that. And we've then got to go back into that Lakeview project, and try and figure out what's under the hood here. How much liability are we really facing? Why do these guys get 20 years to pay the bill? Why don't we bring that forward a bit if we possibly can? And then there will be opportunities for savings by our ratepayers if we get a share of GST and a share of the International Visitor Levy landed back here for us to use. The government has also opened up some special odd funds for accelerating infrastructure. One of them is called the Infrastructure Acceleration Fund. And there are new special purpose vehicles to ease the burden on us when it comes to developments. So those are ways in which we can save money. There's a final point here which is a little sensitive, but it's something all of us will have to face, and that is the current bill before Parliament to amend the Local Government Act will remove or seeks to remove the 4 well-beings from council budgets, and those well-beings are environmental programs, social programs, cultural programs and economic programs. Now this might come as a shock, but it's going to have to be dealt with.
Thank you, Nick. All right, Glenn, you can perhaps explain a bit more about Project Manawa and also Lakeview.
Can do, but first I'll tell you about the savings we have made. So the largest capital program on our books for the next 10 years was the hardware pipeline. That was down for 77 million. The tender released will be delivered on in a shorter time at 30 million less. That's because we changed our procurement strategy and actually looked at separable portions within the contract to allow smaller players to actually do it. So that actually allowed some more efficiencies and actually spread the contract net wider. So we're actually looking at that now. The CCO. Roughly for a utilities company, the OPEX should be around 2% of the asset value. Currently, council's 3 water assets of 1.47 billion, we're running at 2.67%. So that's 0.67%. 40 million OPEX, it roughly works out to be 9 million of savings we can make if we actually apply proper corporate governance through a CCO and actually have a company that is focused purely on 3 waters. And that is one of the driving factors is why I voted to actually make sure that that happened. So we have an opportunity there of saving $9 million based on just corporate governance and a CE and a company purely focused on 1.5 billion of capital spend that we're going to do over the next 10 years. Lakeview, again, look, I've looked at all the history, started off in 2002 with Futures Queenstown, signed off in 2016-17. I'm pretty sure some of these guys would probably go back to when Noah was in short pants to have a go at what council has done and probably ask why the ARC didn't go out to tender for multiple people to apply. Look, I'll just make the best deal I can out of Lakeview because it's already been signed and sealed. I'm not going to open it up to risk to the ratepayer with legal fees and break fees and penalties. There you go.
Okay, and just because it was raised by Nick about Project Manawa, you head office?
Look, Project Manawa, we'll get this clear. Project Manawa was about an arts centre. It was about commercialising the freehold land at the bookends, as well as Project Connect, which was the council office. I can tell you now, if we don't have a council office, one council office by 2028, your rates will rise because our leases end and the operational cost will lift. This is one thing I'm pretty annoyed about because this council and previous councils have did it. We need to make a decision because we've already locked in future rate rises because we can't figure out one building.
Well, we can lease that building.
Okay, we can lease it, we can build it.
We can build one on the land in Frankton that you already own.
Okay, we can come back to more public questions about that topic later on in the night. Let's go to the vexed issue of rates. They've gone up on an average of 50% in the last 3 years, 13% last year alone on average. So, candidates, how would you balance the need for infrastructure investment with the burden on ratepayers, especially for those on fixed incomes? So, it's about balance. Al?
Well, oh God, I'll tell you, when I bought my place at Kinloch, my little piece of land, my rates were 12 cents a year. We had our own roadman, and he had a grader and a digger. He kept the drains clean, he kept the culverts clean. We didn't get the messes that we get now. And now I'm paying $3,000 a year, and we've got a grader that turns up now and then. The roads are bloody wreck, and the whole thing's gone. What this council has been doing, their culture is take more, give less. You know, so I'm getting so much less for so much more, and it's across the district. You know, so that's why I don't support a bed tax or anything, because the more you pour in there, the more it disappears. Everybody has spoken about savings and making them accountable. The people that need to be accountable are on my billboard.
All right. Thank you, John. So, rates rises, how do you get the balance, and do you believe rates rises above inflation are justified?
So I think the balance comes from the people that vote for their choice of mayor. That, you know, you send a strong message when you choose your candidate. Rates, yes, death and taxes, inevitable. I had a great conversation with somebody yesterday who said, imagine you were legally required to have a 0% rate rise. 0%. And then what would you have to do? What would be the decisions that you would have to make? And more importantly, how would that challenge the way that we do things? You might think of alternative ways of doing it because you had to. And you know, I think because we just upped the rates, and over in the Upper Clutha it was 18%. So we just keep upping it because we're all captive customers. We can't, get somebody else to pay. We can't go say, I'd like to go to Selwyn. They've got better rates than I have. So just focusing on how we get better value, what we do, why we do it. Maybe there's other ways we can do it. Instead of building 20-kilometre long pipelines, which are very expensive, why don't we have some decentralised, smaller, cheaper, more resilient wastewater systems? We can have a discussion about that. But that would be the type of thing that we should be looking at to save money.
All right, thank you, John. Next, so the balance and rate rises above inflation.
Well, we've got to bring rate rises way better under control than we have them now. I mean, they're almost runaway rate rises. And the way to do that is to try to access the funding mechanisms that have been put on the table by central government. And I would argue that includes GST and the International Visitor Levy. And we need to get developer contributions paid up front so that we're not carrying the burden of that short-term financing ourselves.
All right. And Glenn?
So we ran the 0% rates rise. We've run that experiment. It resulted in no infrastructure spend, no development for probably 5 years, and we're still trying to catch up now. And that's why the rate rises have occurred. 50% of your rate rises is for funded depreciation. That's the maintenance of the existing assets we have. If we don't actually do that, we'll end up like Wellington. Right, rates rises in line with inflation. I disagree with that because the construction materials and the stuff we do have very little relevance to the price of groceries and the stuff that's in your supermarket. So an example, 52% bitumen index went up in the last 12 months. Inflation, and I think the Taxpayers Union is talking about plus population growth. The baseline assumption there is that infrastructure spend follows a linear trend as you keep going. But we all know infrastructure spend is stepwise. If you start capping rates, you will destroy the ability to actually invest in critical infrastructure. And that's what you've seen overseas.
All right. Thank you, Glenn. Let's move now to the issue of debt and long-term investment. Queenstown Lakes District Council has the highest debt levels of any local council in New Zealand, with a net debt to revenue ratio of 271% as of July this year, significantly exceeding the national median of 65%. Now, I know it's under the local government finance authority covenant of 290%, but it's at 271% of debt to revenue. So, what is your stance, candidates, on current debt levels, and how would you approach borrowing for the major projects which are required over the next 3 years? Can we start with that?
Oh, God. Yeah.
Don't you want to answer these questions?
Yeah. Of course. There's just so much going by. I don't agree with those levels of debt. 700 odd million at the moment. If that's at 8% interest, that's 12 million a year over 60 years disappearing down the tubes of the banks or whoever on earth we've borrowed it off. And I think if we carry on with the same council and culture, we'll be $1 billion by the end of the next 3-year term. So that's not intergenerational. That's whole that's evolution going. People are going to change in that time immensely. So we need to get that under control. But you've got to get the council and its culture changed. You've got to get the council under control before we can start controlling the debt. There's no point having the same people in there pouring bales of money out of the district all the time. Little examples. The girl at the swimming pool day at home said, we've got a contractor that can do the job. Nope, you had to go to Hastings to get the contractor. $10,000 to bring him down here to do the damn repair. We need the money spent here. We need machinery of our own again.
All right. Thank you, Al. John, so the question is your stance on the current debt levels, and what do you think is the maximum debt to revenue ratio that you'd be comfortable with, bearing in mind it's 271% at the moment, or as of July?
Certainly less than we've got now. And my concern about the CCO and the Three Waters moving out of council is that creates a lot more opportunity for us to spend more money, because it's a bit like our garage, which is full, and we actually get rid of a load of stuff, and we've got more space. And everyone knows, it doesn't matter how big your garage is, it's always full. So, we will be paying more on our water rates, because all of that debt is covered by a new water entity. And then, do we believe that council will be able to resist the temptation to spend more because suddenly it's got another sort of however tens of millions? Absolutely not. We actually have to have a program that says, what does it take to bring that debt down? And there are enough smart people around, there are some consultants, but we actually need to get people to say, what does it really look like if we bring that debt down? Because we have to get it under control. We have to do what it takes. We've got an airport. We've got an airport that gives us a dividend each year. They're about to spend $200 million improving the customer journey. Well, actually, maybe we could put that off for a couple of years and get a much bigger dividend, and that would pay down some even more debt.
All right, thank you, John. To Nick then, so the maximum debt to revenue ratio that you'd be comfortable with, but more to the point when it comes to a specific project, is targeted borrowing a targeted rate worth considering?
Well, for a start, I must declare I'm not anti-debt. I do believe it's critical that the intergenerational infrastructure investments do have intergenerational capacity to pay built into them. So we can't pretend that we can be free of debt. We need to make sure that we always remain under the statutory limitation for that debt, which we are. So I don't see that we have a debt crisis here. I agree with John that the moving out of the water responsibilities away from the council, including its debt loading, which is the biggest portion of debt that's being held by the council, actually gives the council some room to either reduce that percentage of debt to income down towards the national average, which would be a great idea and something we should strive for. We will have the ability to manoeuvre within that freed up debt headroom that's going to result from the transfer of water out of the council.
And Clint, can you tell us when the water assets go out of the council books, council balance sheet, how much will the debt reduce by, presuming the debt obviously goes towards the CCO, doesn't it? Goes over to the CCO.
So currently our debt levels, 2/3 of our debt is tied up in Three Waters capital investment. So you're right, it's like 699, let's just say 700 million, so 2/3 of that would get transferred over to the new entity. And that happens, I think, statutory by the 30th of June 2027. I just got to remember that one, it was my 2028 now. Look, debt's a tough one, especially when 20% of our debt headroom was taken away from by a leaky building claim. And that's been probably the worst council meeting I've ever been in. It was like a death in the family in the room, but that's we had to deal with it, and we dealt with it. Historically, infrastructure investment in New Zealand. You can go to Infrastructure New Zealand. During the 50s and 60s post-war period where we were investing in infrastructure, the debt to income ratio was 1 to 500. We deleveraged over the 80s and paid it all back. We now have a new infrastructure deficit. We now have to start putting money into infrastructure to actually support the economic growth and our quality of life into the future. The same as what those forgotten generation did when they came back from the war. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. Let's go on to theme number 4, which is water, infrastructure and growth. So it moves on from the debt issue. The district is facing major challenges with water supply, wastewater and rapid population changes. Tourist numbers increased by 1.1% when overall visitors in New Zealand fell by 0.7%. So what specific plans would you put forward to ensure sustainable infrastructure that keeps pace with demand? And Al, bearing in mind that the population of Queenstown increases way above the actual resident population every day, not just tourists, but the tradies that come here as well.
Yeah, without a doubt, first of all, we need an honest and complete assessment of what we've got in the ground and in the plants and everything, instead of what we have got. I did offer at a recent debate a bottle of water from just below the sewage ponds for anybody to have a drink that was convinced that it was all hunky-dory. Nobody took a sip. And I wouldn't either. But which indicates to me that nobody's got much faith in what we're being told. So we need to have an honest and in-depth assessment of our infrastructure first, and then pinpoint where to spend the money and who we're going to spend it with for a start. The other thing, I firmly believe we need to start bringing some of these contracts back in-house. We need to start going back with having some of our own machinery, half a dozen diggers, 2 graders, trucks, to go between here and Wanaka. Start doing some of our own maintenance because we're just getting nailed.
All right, thank you, Al. John, specific plans to ensure sustainable infrastructure, but would you, for instance, support higher charges on developers to sustain or to pay for infrastructure?
So I think the main thing is to make sure that growth is actually paying for the cost of growth, and at the moment it's not. For those people like me that look at the long-term plan, there's a chart in there, and there's 2 lines, and one is actually the money we get from the development contributions, and the other line is the cost of growth, and that gap is getting bigger. And there's a number of reasons for that, and so we need to have that conversation, because otherwise that gap is just debt that we pay on our rates, and we should not be subsidising the cost of growth. In terms of infrastructure, we've got the Southern Corridor, there's people waiting to carve up that land, they've got a structure plan, they're held up because our wastewater plant can't take a lot more. Why not let them do decentralised? Let them build their own wastewater in that area. Then they can get on with their development, and I guess they would probably build it for half the price that we would do. And then down the line, maybe it can be vested in council if it meets the standards. So let's not put the roadblock in the way. I absolutely find that other people put in the infrastructure so they can develop, and they'll do a better job than when we manage it.
All right, next, higher charges for infrastructure. There's one bit of infrastructure that bothers me every time I come to this place when I hear about Simplicity and their big plans for opposite the Queenstown Country Club. I come in there at 8 o'clock in the morning, as I have in some months past. It's bumper to bumper traffic there now, and I'm thinking you're going to put another 600 houses up on the right-hand side. why can't we, to start with, put a 4-lane road in there before it? Now, I know that's probably an NZTA issue, but you say you've got contacts in Wellington, mate. Can you do it?
Sure can. Well, let me first of all say, infrastructure, the two biggest challenges are water and roading. And on water, I'm comfortable with where the council is taking us. I know that sounds a bit unusual, but the capacity and the upgrading that's being built into the Shotover Delta wastewater treatment plant and the one in Wanaka are adequate for the forecasts for growth. So let's settle down on that. That seems to be under control. But I agree with you, Peter. The roads are a nightmare. The congestion is absolutely terrible. And we need to absolutely have a better conversation with NZTA on what its plans are to help us. We need new bridges throughout this district. We need them in Albert Town and outside of Wanaka. We need them here at the Shotover River off the Boyd Road. And we need to double lane the Arthur's Point Bridge. We need NZTA to come here and understand that we're going to have way better conversations about managing traffic flows. And I agree with you. We could double lane Frankton Road and have the double lane going up Mulligan's Road, and that congestion would be gone tomorrow. And it can be done, and it can be done through traffic light controls. It can be done through congestion charging as well. So we can, in fact, improve our blocked up roading network.
All right. And Glenn, actually, here's a random thought for you. My mate Michael Laws, I was chatting with him recently, Otago Regional Councillor. He said Queenstown is basically a problem that is unsolvable. He said Queenstown should become a government department. It should not have its own local authority. It needs to be run by somebody else. Okay, you're the man in charge. I presume you disagree vehemently with him, but tell us about why and how you can pay for the appropriate infrastructure.
Well done, Michael. I think that's probably a discussion we had about special economic zones, and especially around how we can strive to do something different with this government, and actually having a government policy office down here to actually address the unique issues we do have. Look, roading is always a tough one. The best story I had is talking with Ian Tolley, the former commissioner of Tauranga, and she poured her heart into trying to solve the transport options problems in Tauranga with NZTA. They spent over 10 years developing a plan, had it all funded, ready to go. Then they got a letter of best intentions from NZTA. The one Crown agency I would love to reform and rip up and put back together is NZTA. Slow, inefficient, their investment timings do not align with local government. It is probably the most frustrating agency I've got to deal with, and their processes are slow, business cases are convoluted. But talking with the Minister of Transport, Minister Fisher, talking with Simon Court, the Associate Minister for Resource Management Reform, I see their program of work actually being enabling and speeding up that process. I also, we're now seriously looking at mass rapid transit off-grid and actually making sure that that is community owned and the public transport system works in an integrated way from here, Wanaka, Cromwell to Alex.
Thank you, Glenn. Right, the last of our thematic questions before we have audience questions, under the theme of leadership, transparency and accountability. I gave you those numbers before. I can just recap for you about the... I can't go backwards on the computer after all, but basically, in the wrong direction, vast majority of those surveyed said Queenstown's going in the wrong direction. The question along the lines of what's the performance of the council, the vast majority is it poor, very poor, and not too much in the way of satisfaction in council performance. So, Al, there's some numbers that need to be improved there. If you're the boss, what do you do?
Get rid of Miller, stop hiding everything and tell the truth. It's not rocket science. But just going back one question, the smartest bit of stuff that was ever done on these roads in the last 30 years, somebody painted a white dot at the end of Ballarat Street. It worked superbly, you know.
Okay. Okay, so council performance. You got any comment about how you might improve it? No.
How can you make it worse? Anybody can improve it.
All right, John. You can expand a bit more.
I'll use some of Al's time. Look, owning the problem, believing it's there, and responding to it. Now, I've been on quite a few of these talks now, and I've heard, oh, it's an international thing, oh, it's a post-COVID thing, oh, it's just local government's unpopular everywhere, blah de blah de blah. It's excuses. We're not stupid. We all live here, and the trust levels are so bad that people are stopping admitting that they work for council because they don't want to be harassed in the shop or the supermarket or the pub, and that is wrong. Local government is public service, okay? So serving the public is a good start. Let's focus on that. We are here to serve the public. The public are not people that make our life awkward. They're not people that get in our way. They're not people that stop us doing the things that we'd rather be doing. We are here to serve the public. You build trust with leadership, and you do that by owning the problem, and you start that on October the 11th when you elect a new mayor.
Thank you, John. Nick, those numbers: Queenstown Lakes District Council performance, very poor 16%, poor 42%, average 31%. So what's that? 73 and 16, 89% average or below for the Queenstown Lakes Council performance. Pretty depressing numbers, aren't they?
These are very sad statistics, indeed, and I think it takes a new mayor, a new personality, someone who's a bit bolder and brighter, to go out there and be in the street, talk to people, make sure the doors are open, keep the files open, pop the lid on all of these secret deals which have been done behind the scenes, and actively court public opinion and be open to it.
Glenn, you're the man in the hot seat. You've overseen those poor numbers.
Yeah, interesting that my fellow candidates didn't actually come up with any actionable solution here. So over the last 3 years, this council has opened up all our workshops to the public, and we now provide a recording of it that is released to the public. We now proactively release all our LAGOIMAs. We now proactively release PX or public excluded items that are no longer sensitive. We now film all of our community meetings, our committee meetings, and they're all posted online. All of our council meetings are live streamed. We have now moved to, if there is an item in public excluded and there is a part in that public excluded item that doesn't need to be public excluded, we've now moved that into public, and it's split into 2 parts. So we're making actual tangible difference in our transparency. Yes, it is not enough. I acknowledge that. We still have to work on it, but there is still more to do, and we will do it.
All right, thank you, Glenn. And I'm going to put this one on you because you're the incumbent before we go to questions from the audience. The matter of your chief executive salary. Now, each of the last 2 years, an 8% pay rise, and then a 15% pay rise. Took him from under 400,000 to 467,000. Those are numbers that the public sees the headlines for and thinks, wow. Now, you're the man who effectively sets the CEO's salary. You're about to get a new chief executive. Do you see the new chief executive being paid the same?
Depends on the calibre of the candidate. Look, it's been a tough one. He was on a pay freeze for, I think, 2.5 years during COVID. We get professional advice on the pay bands from low, medium to high. He's judged on his performance on KPIs. It is an employment matter. You have to actually follow employment law when you actually look at these things. The discussion amongst the councillors is robust. We do challenge each other, and we certainly challenged ourselves in the last round. It is a decision of council, and obviously as the mayor and the leader I have to stand beside those decisions. He works extremely hard, I can tell you that now. I have no fault on his work ethic, and I have no fault on what he's achieved and what we've asked him to do, because he's actually done what we've asked him to do.
All right, and one last question on that matter before you have the new chief executive in place, when you go through the interviewing process, there was a question put to the recently appointed Wellington City Council chief executive along the lines of, if the council tells you to do something, will you do it? And the chief executive said, of course. And that question was put to everybody on the shortlist, and Mr. Prosser, who got the job in Wellington, was the only one who said, of course. So would you expect the chief executive to do what the council tells them to do and not go off on their own tangents? Because some chief executives go a bit rogue at times.
If it is lawful, yes, I expect him to do exactly what the full council has resolved for him to do. And that is certainly what's happened over the last 3 years. I can't fault the current CEO deviating from our strategic objective. The way he goes about it, it's operational. That's probably where the arguments and the friction happens. And that's probably a maturity over where government stops and operations start. And look, there'll always be friction between those boundaries.
Very good. Just Peter?
Oh, sorry, John?
Yeah, just to point out that our next chief executive may not be a he.
My apologies.
No, that was just
I was talking about the existing one.
Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, the floor is open. We'll take questions from the floor. You can direct your question to all four, to them individually, or to groups of 1, 2, or 3. So, from the floor, who wants to go first?
That's right.
Sir.
Mr. Lewis, Jason Medina here. How can we possibly believe you about transparency in council when one of your council members attempted to get the truth out to the public, what was going on with our wastewater system, and you threw her under the bus? Directly under the bus. I believe it's actually, tell us how.
Well, we provided a confidential briefing for a start, and you can't argue with me about whether it was confidential or not, because that has actually been written by a court judgment in the Environment Court. The judge has said it was confidential information. So when you receive confidential information, there's an expectation that the council is actually in collegial togetherness.
We were being lied to.
No, you weren't being lied to.
Bullshit.
Well, sorry, you were not being lied to. We had a plan to talk with the ORC and then with our iwi partners, and once that decision was made, we were going to do the stand-up and release it publicly. That's what the plan was. What we had was one individual that decided they knew better and actually damaged relationships with the ORC and damaged relations with the iwi.
By telling the truth.
Sorry, there is a process you have to go through as an elected
You
member.
can't even look at me in the eye when you're giving me my answer, right?
I'm talking to everyone here.
Okay, alright.
We told the truth. We knew exactly what was going on. We had a plan to tell everyone, and we went about it, and we did it.
Okay.
What you had, and you had 8 councillors, was 8-2. That
Under your
actually said,
leadership.
yes, under my leadership,
Yeah.
because the councillors asked me to
And
do
you
something.
see why we don't believe in the transparency and faith in council.
We did it up in public as well. There you go.
Okay, thank you. Next question from the floor. No.
I asked this question of councillors recently, and I did say to the sitting councillors on the Arrowtown Borough Ward, don't bother answering because you haven't done anything. And I'm retired on a fixed income, and so these rate increases have just been appalling. And I think the council, for me, lost it when they did increase the salary by such an amount. So you're just using us as ratepayers as an ATM to increase. So we don't get those increases. You didn't have to increase it by that much, and actually, quite frankly, I think any CEO worth their salt would have said, I can't accept an increase like that when we're putting such pressure on our ratepayers. So I don't think it's a team approach. This is one where the council is doing what they want. And the best thing I've heard was, John, you saying about you could make efficiencies, because if you're saying there aren't any savings to be made, that is absolute bullshit. I would be happy to come in as an experienced operational manager and I could guarantee to find you savings in next to no time. It's just rubbish. And on the transparency, I just wonder why, if you're so transparent, why Crux has had such a dreadful time trying to get information out of you.
Response, Glenn?
So, Arrowtown has some very hard-working councillors.
Where are they?
Sorry?
I've yet to meet them. But
Well, they turn up at the library the last Friday
yeah,
of
what
every
a waste
month
of time that
to
is
talk
in
with
terms
you.
of rubbish.
So you're free and welcome to talk with them. The councillors work extremely hard across Wanaka, Arrowtown and Queenstown, Whakatipu. Look, as I said before, we have to follow employment law. It can be very, very difficult. And then, yes, we do weigh up what the appetite is to pay. It is a group decision and we make it. And look, yes, I am the mayor and I'll stand by the councillor's decision.
I find that disgraceful.
It's democracy.
Questions from the floor? Sorry.
Yes, Glenn. Why do you actually need a chief executive?
I think we're going back to town clerk days.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
look. Even in the 6 years I've been in council, the complexity and the demands from central government, the lifting of standards, health and safety, the unfunded mandates we have to deal with, and looking after 447 full-time equivalents, I think it's a different beast to what it was under a town clerk system. A CE, I think it's become, and look, this is probably the issue with councils and the way that we've been driven that way by legislation. It has become more corporatised, and that's probably why you start to see that people start thinking we're dealing with a machine. But it's a very hard way to turn that around, and we're trying to do that. But yeah, I think we need a CE because they are financially liable and they're also criminally liable and civilly liable for things that we do.
The point I'm trying to make, Glenn, is the whole council, it's bloody chocker with people, 487 of them. Now, if you just possibly could work out, there's 10 of those on holiday each week on normal leave. If place is just absolutely burdened with people, and I would like you to do, yes, I can say a Trump thing, and say, send them an email and say, what did you do last week? I really would like the answer.
And watch the personal grievances come in, and as ratepayers, you
Who
pay.
gives a shit?
Well, the ratepayers will be giving a shit when you pay more in operation in rates because we'll be handing out money for redundancies. Look, on the number, if you look at our activity levels, this council produces, I think we're third in building consents. Only Auckland City and Christchurch City do more new residential building consents. If you remove coastal permits, we're third again behind Auckland City and Christchurch City on resource consents. And our staff numbers are well below those cities, while we have a large expanse of land that we've got to look after. On a population basis to staff numbers, we're at the higher end when we compare other metro councils, and we are compared with, this is the government compares us with Auckland, Tauranga, Hamilton, Palmerston North, Wellington, Honolulu, Hudsey, Christchurch, Dunedin. We have the smallest population by far, but we're dealing with a peak population on any given day of 120,000 people and an average population of around 75,086. So that is why we have to have a higher proportion staff level to ratepayer base. Or services will be diminished.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
Right. And, this is where I was leading to, Peter.
Last question?
Yeah. No, it won't be last question. No, the point I used to be a very regular person in the council, and I used to sit there for an hour looking at the receptionists, just for the point of what the hell do they do? And the biggest part of their job was for all and sundry come in and ask for visitors, people from out of town. They want something from the council. I'm saying to you, to save some money in this town, you put a sign up at the desk and say, ask a question if you're a ratepayer. If not, pull out your checkbook. Because we don't need our council. I know we've got a huge amount of tourists here, but we're the council for the people. We're not the council for every Tom, Dick and Harry who walks in the door. Now my last question then I have to add on is why are there sewage ponds under the end of the flight path of our airport? If we lose an airplane through bird strike, we would really have some trouble. And I'm appalled that those sewage ponds are there, because they're the only flat area of water in the district, and birds sit on flat water.
Thank you, and that's probably why we drained, that was one of the reasons under emergency powers we drained the disposal field. We've invested in the last 3 years 50 million for a new sewage train. Once that's commissioned in December this year, over the next 2 years you will see those ponds you were talking about disappear. So that has happened in the 3 years that I've been in there. 2028 gone.
Okay. Thank you for your contribution, sir. There's a hand up over here. I'll get to you in a moment. Jamie and Kush, we'll cover everybody.
Thank you. I'm a tourist. I'm from the Coromandel, and we've had our share of problems in recent times. It feels like we would love some of the tourism that you guys have. You're one of the only examples in the country that has growth. And yet what I'm hearing tonight is that it's not a good thing. It's actually a burden on ratepayers. So I'm really curious to know, like, if you could be the government for one day, what would you say to growth in tourism? Would you think it's a good thing, or would you suggest to someone like me who's actually standing for council in Coromandel, maybe don't go there?
Okay. Right. There's a question for everybody. We'll go from the end. Dick?
Yeah, thank you, and good luck with your candidacy. The really critical thing is to make sure that growth in tourism numbers and growth in local residents can be matched with our capacity for infrastructure. That's the really important thing that we have to do. You don't really find tourism being a problem when capacity for infrastructure is capable of catering to their needs. So I would just urge you to use every lever you possibly can to make sure the government stays in step with you on getting infrastructure in line with your own residential development and the visitor numbers that come to your area.
Let's pass it along. Sorry, Dick.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Look, and the reason why, we've had growth while other districts have struggled, 2 reasons. We've got the connectivity through our airport, but the one that you don't realise is, because I was on the board of Destination Queenstown when we were going through the pandemic years, we didn't pull back the funding in our promotion to Australia. We made sure that we were still well known, so when the borders did open, they came in. On the issue of tourism has been very good to this town. Tourism actually has been it is the biggest economic driver historically, and it will be into the future. We are using tourism, and look, regional deals, the main pitch, if you go through when they first started in England and through to Australia, was all about leveraging off scale. Now, I mentioned Tauranga is one of them. 60% of all seaborne trade goes out of that port in New Zealand. Auckland's the other one. It's a third of the population, the economic powerhouse. The only thing of scale we have here is tourism. And we've got to figure out how to best leverage off that to grow other economic pillars while also improving the quality of life. And that's why the regional deal construct, that's the opportunity we all have. I think tourism is a good thing, and I'm highly supportive of it.
Pass on to Al, sorry, look.
Yeah, good you go. Good luck. There is a saturation point. You know, there's a point where it just becomes more than a pain in the backside for the locals. It becomes just about absolutely unbearable. We get pushed out of our comfort spaces, out of our car parks, out of our houses, out of the whole 9 yards. You know, the basic community starts to suffer with anything intensive. You know, intensive dairying, intensive care. Everything is bad for somebody. Intensive tourism is the same. So we're lucky, like, you know, we have an airport that somewhat regulates it. You know, and to keep that like that is going to be quite hard, because regardless of their assurances, they still keep banging on the door trying to extend hours and all this sort of carry on. And now they're back at talking about opening Wanaka Airport up, which is just going to do the same over there. So it's a mixed blessing, tourism, you know, and all the boats in the harbour don't come up with the tourism dollar. You know, there's some right at the top that are doing exceptionally well, like in the council, and then there's the rest of the dinghies paddling around in circles. So we just, if you can work out how to spread the love, you know, good luck.
Yeah, thanks, Al. Just on growth in general, I remember 4, 5, 6 years ago, our then mayor saying, look at the size of our growth. You know, how many councils across the country would be, you know, they would love to have our growth. They must be jealous of what we've got. Well, you know, what are they thinking now? I mean, we've got a slow motion train wreck, and it's been really obvious that that's been happening. It's been getting worse and worse. And we don't have a plan. We don't have a plan for what are we going to do for the next 10 years that actually will make a difference. Now, I work in tourism, vested interest, 25 years, and to answer Basil's questions about council, because I'm going to do that anyway, you know, if I run my business like council runs its finances, lasted a week. You know, I think some of council's financial policies are about as, you know, tight as the elastic in a 10-year-old pair of undies. You know, there's so much stretch and there's so much wiggle room and there's so much looseness. So, you know, be business-like in council, and that's what we need to do. But I've also, in a different hat, I've actually done societal research in this district and across the district with workshops online and in Wanaka on the impacts on tourism on our community. And you know, there's lots of things that we love. You know, we wouldn't have all these ski fields, we wouldn't have all the bike paths, we wouldn't have lots and lots of things if there weren't all these tourists. So it's what are the opportunities?
I didn't understand that.
There we go. You didn't understand that. There we go. Say no more. So, you know, and it's when the impacts outweigh the opportunities and the benefits, that's when we've got a problem. We've got that now. The Net Promoter Score, which is the likelihood of our visitors recommending this area to other visitors, is plummeting. Okay? So, you know, we are killing the golden goose because we haven't got a plan and we're not managing our town and our district well.
Jamie, do you have a question?
Yeah, just following on from that question, sort of segue into it, I was going to ask something very similar, but it brings me to how do we monetize tourism to council coffers in Queenstown? I don't know what's on the regional deal. I'd like to know what you're proposing with regard to that, because at the moment tourism's the thing that's creating the growth, and the growth is creating the problem on the infrastructure. It's circular and cumulative. It's getting worse. We've got a construction industry that is actually feeding a construction industry to meet that growth. And if you took out the construction industry in Queenstown right now, we wouldn't have a problem, or we'd have a less of a problem, because there would be less demand on the infrastructure. But the real question is, how do we start putting more money into the council coffers over and above what the ratepayers are paying from the people who are using all of the infrastructure that we have, or the little infrastructure and the necessary infrastructure that we need going forward?
There's the question. We'll go along the line again. Start with you, Nick.
Right. Well, thank you very much, Jamie. I agree. We need new revenue streams, and I think that the $400 million that we give central government every year in the GST on tourism expenditure alone, just on tourism expenditure, $400 million we're giving central government every year. We need some of that back here, and we need the government to make good its promise that we were going to get a slice of the international visitor levy. And instead of that, the government waltzed off and used it to promote even more tourism to this nation of ours. We need to have the government honour its commitment to return some of that to us for infrastructure and for the maintenance and improvement of the conservation estate. And then there will be other opportunities such as congestion charging that might apply to tourism vehicles coming in and out of the town. These are ways to monetarise the tourism input into our local economy.
Yeah, so we're still working on the visitor levy. That is in the regional deal negotiations. That's talking about capturing the value of tourism. The GST on tourism spend has been ruled out. GST on new builds, that is still in the regional deal pitch that we put in. The current thinking, when talking with Minister Willis and listening to David Seymour, GST will be used as a proxy. It won't be used as an absolute direct give back. So it'll be used as a proxy. Look, the things like you see, it's not a direct correlation of GST to what you get back from the government. It will be used. They'll come up with some formula. So. We'll get there somehow.
Some sort of rebate.
Something like that. But
That's
the
why
next
it's
one,
so important to go for this, because we are actually slightly getting there. The foot is in the door.
yeah, and that's why negotiations are so critical over the next 3 to 6 to 8 months. The next option we do have is the reform in road user charges. Taking it off your petrol tax to actually kilometres travelled. You can start playing around with things with technology, with rental vehicles paying a higher level of road user charge per kilometre travelled. There's also time of use charging. If we go down a mass rapid transit system, so I'm very supportive of the gondola, I'll make that very clear, that can be paid by a higher rate from our tourists coming through our airport. So there's things in train that we are discussing, but it does take a person that's come through 6 years of strategic thinking about this and putting that to the government, and then actually coming and talking with the negotiator to do it on our behalf.
Pass it on to Al.
Thank you. I'll hark back to my other arguments. We've had rate increase after rate increase. The council is just getting, I think from Van Uden was about 120, we're up around 270 or wherever we are. There's millions, tens of millions of more dollars getting poured into this council, and there's less and less service. We need an accountable, responsible council that is held accountable by the ratepayers. So, like the lady here, go in there and sort them out. Good luck. Vote me in, and you can come in.
So, to answer the question about how do you monetise tourism, when we're developing tourism accommodation, we're actually giving them a discount. So in the development contribution for hotels and apartments, there's no element there to pay for our parks or our reserves or our swimming pools. Now, if we're building houses, we will pay a development contribution towards that. But for hotels, no. And yet, each year in our annual plan, there's a budget figure which is the loss at the swimming pool due to visiting, people who are visiting the district. So we're subsidising that. So let's not subsidise it for a start. And then, it's horrible technical stuff, and you don't need to be on council to be a mayor, because if you've got a bit of knowledge, you can work through these things. And the development contribution, the assumptions for visitor accommodation is they produce half the water that we do in our residential properties. So they pay half per person or per room that we will be paying for building houses. So that is really subsidised. They're not paying their fair share. And we can deal with that. We've made those submissions in the past. The council hasn't taken them on board. And you just have to ask why. Because it's not fair, it's not reasonable, and we shouldn't, even as somebody that works in the tourism sector, we shouldn't be subsidising it from everyone else that's in this room. All right.
Thank you, John. Mr. Cushion. New Zealand over 70s cricket representative.
Yeah, Peter, you're doing a great job. Build it and they'll come. That was a sports movie, wasn't it? We had a guy that built a baseball field and they all came. I look at Queenstown. Every hotel we build requires so many hundred workers and then so many hundred people to work there. So it's bigger, better. Now, I've read a number of papers coming out of Aspen. I got the privilege of lecturing to American universities. And they come over here looking for solutions. And I'll tell you what, they go away disappointed when they hear about what's going on in Queenstown. We also had Noosa over here 3 or 4 years ago, and I was involved with them. And they also went home and said, we can't learn anything from here. Bigger is not better. And I go back to the development thing. How much are developers paying for the infrastructure we need? One of a friend of ours shot over country, he's a multi-millionaire. Did he contribute what he should have? Peter, keep up your sports stuff, and you're doing a great job with the Taxpayers Union.
You got a question for anybody, Kush, or not?
Well, I'd like a response from the floor.
Can I add to that comment?
Sure.
Do you know if you're supporting or not?
I want to add to your question because at the moment it comes back to fast track, which are basically a workaround what we've got councils for in terms of local planning. With 9 fast tracks, 5 with residential components in Queenstown now, over and above what you've already approved, we've already had approved through council, over and above what's happening on Ladies Mile. How are you going to act as mayors with the Ministry of Environment, with expert panels, because you do get a say when it comes to the various fast tracks that are just going to accelerate and create an even greater problem with the limited infrastructure we've already got in town.
That was my question, Peter.
Okay, we'll go along the line.
Well, as I understand it, we don't really have a great deal of say in what gets given fast track approval. That's one of the biggest problems. So I think that, intensifying the dialogue with government over what deserves
You have a seat at the table.
Yeah.
We don't.
Yeah.
You do?
We don't. No, sorry, we don't.
Sorry, you do. ORC and QLDC both have representatives that can have a say at the table with the expert panels. And that is in the document. The thing that's in question now is whether other third parties can also have a say. And that's only because ministers are getting frustrated because the expert panels are putting up barriers to these fast-track developments around the country that are not necessarily good for the country.
Okay, I'll explain it to you. Council, as an organisation, can comment. We can put,
Correct.
yes, but we can comment. That's the limit of it. We can put up a commissioner of our choice to the panel. That is separate to council. The commissioner, whether they be an elected member or of our choice, is independent. They will make the decision on the evidence presented to them or her, not on the will or the intent or our want as an organisation. The commissioner is independent even if we choose them. So to say we have a say is incorrect.
Well,
Okay, now I'll move
your
on.
Just to be clear,
Yeah.
your representative can be a council member.
Yes, they can.
It doesn't have to be a commissioner, so let's be very clear.
No,
on
they
that.
are still a commissioner,
And
but they can.
That representative can represent to the expert panel on behalf of the council.
No,
I don't agree with that.
no,
I
they
think
have to. They have to. Once they've done the good decision making, they have to make a decision on the evidence presented to them. They cannot go onto the panel and represent a certain point of view before the evidence is put before them. That is very clear. Okay, now, fast track. We had 14 in Otago, 9 of them came to this district. Right. I can tell you now we've had probably 4 or 5 others wanting to get through the toll gate to then put in the fast track application. With all the efforts of government trying to circumvent councils for a fast decision, I now have the head of the EPA panellist asking us now to evaluate the submissions and not even compensate us for the work we're doing. So this is the real issue we have, is actually the government's foisted the cost onto the ratepayer without actually giving us any power to make have any influence on the decision. So we're working through that now. We're working with government to actually come up with a proper cost structure where we actually get compensated for the work we actually do. It's a very serious issue, and it's coming at us thick and fast, and we've had to actually restructure our planning department so we actually have a team that's taken resource off what our normal BAU is to actually process this. We've got extreme pressure in the planning department because of it. And it is a concern of mine that we will have to pass those costs on the ratepayer because of the law saying we have to balance our budget.
What's the position going to be though when you do comment on it? Will you look at it against your district plan?
Yes, so I've made it very clear. Because the district plan is the only community document we have when it comes to planning, that the technical assessment and the comments will be made purely on the rules, policies and objectives of the district plan. That's all we can do.
Just to clarify one point, you said there was 14, but very few of them, I don't think there's any actually of the 9 that have actually put a substantive application to the
one has.
environment. So how would the panel convener be asking you for an opinion?
No, they're huge. So she sits above. She's a retired judge. She appoints the panels. Look, one has put a substantive submission in. It got asked for more information, and I think it's back in there now, which I think.
Santos?
No, that's Santana, that's CODC, that has nothing to do with us.
No, sorry, well, I'm trying to work out who it is here.
Sorry?
Who is that?
I think it is.
Homestead?
Yeah, Homestead, no, I think it's the one.
Okay. Al, you got some comments on that? Mate, if you don't want to, say no.
I will say, I'm not scared of you. Fast track is a bit of a two-headed beast. If you have a look up there at Melbourne, Henry Street, Dog's Breakfast, just that fast tracking up there has not worked out for us at all. So I'm not really a supporter of a lot of it. It needs to be really gone over before any of it gets put through. I mean, one skiff of snow up there and that road's closed. There's nowhere to go, nothing to do. The whole 9 yards. So, well, it might just be fast tracking done by the council. I don't know. Yeah, we really need. And as far as the subdivisions go, there is, and that's mainly what they're trying to push through under affordable housing, which is a myth. There's no affordable housing. But the septic systems now are so efficient that most of the any quarter acre sections can sustain one easily. So we need to start looking at making these places like Handley's. It's got its own treatment plant. The one out at going up at Coronet Peak Road out there by Neville's place. They all need to be self-sufficient with their own sewage things. Then I don't have too much of a problem. But there needs to be some sort of decent public transport coming from there as well. We can put 30 in a bus or what have you. Just loading the roads up. There's going to be no fresh roads or bridges for a very long time. There'll be people in here, me included, that'll be dead before there's another bridge goes over at Boyd Road.
John?
Yeah, I think just to bring it back to the fast track consenting process, it's a consenting process, right? So how many hundreds and probably thousands of consents have been issued over the years that never get built? So it's not a fast track to construction, it's an approval process. And council doesn't need to then go, oh right, you've got a consent, we're going to build a whole new road and a whole new set of wastewater and a whole new set. I mean, council can choose what infrastructure it provides, and council might need to say, well, that's fine, you may have consent to do something out there. That's not in our plan, it's not in our spatial plan, we've never anticipated it, and it is not our priority to put those services out there. Sure, if you want to do it yourself, fine, but we shouldn't be led to do that. Housing is, in my view, a bit like I do a lot of work in conservation and planting, and there's a really good saying, right plant, right place. Okay? You put the right plant in the right place, it thrives, and its community thrives, and everything does well, and everyone grows together. You put the wrong plant in the wrong place, and we've got all sorts of problems, we've got unintended consequences. Houses and development is no different, and we should be prepared to stand up for the things that we value in this district and that our kids value, so that when they come back, they'll recognise this district and they'll feel, actually, it reminds me of the home that I grew up in. And even better, wouldn't it be great if they could afford to live here? So it's no easy answer, but we shouldn't be afraid of trying to be visionary, trying to work for the best outcomes we can. Yes, we can say, oh, you can't do that, you can't do that, you can't do that. How many times over the years have we heard that, and yet we still go ahead and we do some stuff and we make a difference? And that is what you need to do when you elect a mayor. You need somebody who is positive, who is prepared to lead the community and prepared to make a difference.
Okay. And there's one more question down here.
Do you want the microphone?
Do you want the microphone so everybody can hear you?
You voted to put the water out to private CCO. Can you guarantee that it's going to save us money? Presumably that's why you did it. And you won't be paying the CEO the obscene amount you're paying the airport CEO.
So the payment of the CCO of the CEO of the new CCO will be up to the board of the CCO. Look, there are efficiency gains with the CCO. I'm sure of that. There is, if you have a look at our financial projections, and I know they are projections, medium to long term, it is cheaper to go to the CCO. There is a 9% free flow, it's FFO, it's free flow of free funds from operations that the new CCO has to make, so that's 9% above the operational cost. That has to be gathered, so funding of the debt is sustainable. That's a direction from the government. We will get there over the space of 6 to 7 years. The reason why I chose the CCO, it's an asset base of around 1.47 billion. And we are projecting to spend another 1.5 billion over the next 10 years on just 3 waters. Councils provide about 98 different services. For a governing body to actually have an in-depth knowledge of, let's say, 1.5 billion managing an asset of 1.47 billion, so you are doubling the asset base over the next 10 years, delivery, while still trying to manage all the other things we do, I find as a stretch very impossible. Now, I've done asset management plans, I'm an engineer, asset management plans, I've worked on financing infrastructure, I've worked on depreciation, I've actually been an engineer to a contract building this stuff. I've gone through this. It is highly technical, highly difficult, and I still, from my point of view, don't have the financial acumen to actually look at a very complex organisation, part of that organisation. I would prefer that to be looked after by a board that has the engineering technical experience, the governance experience, the accounting experience, the financing experience, because that's where you'll drive the efficiencies. That's where a pure focus on delivering 3 waters. I came into this role at Cryptosporidium the first year. Funnily enough, I never got one test back from the water testing that's proved that it was actually in the water. Highly frustrating. Walked around all the water plants in this district. An open area where the cassette for the UV should have been. Series of decisions made by political whims that we didn't put it in because it was too costly. To me, I feel that we're not up to scratch as elected bodies, and I know this is hard because I'm criticising myself, but also look at the kerfuffle down at the shot over. That has been a series of decisions over 15, 20 years that has led to this, because you've had a series of politicians going, oh no, we'll just kick the can down the road, oh we're only growing at 1%, it was only until the ORC said, no, you've got to build a train, a new a plant, and we finally got round to it. You look at history, if we keep repeating the same things, or have the same governance structure, we're going to keep on making the same mistakes. So that is why I said, right, we've just got to rip this plaster off and go to a CCO.
Okay, John, you want to respond to that, I think, don't you?
Well, Nick does as well.
Nick first, yeah.
Well, I too am concerned about the short-term implications financially for us, and you're right. It's not currently proposed that this be a cheaper model. In the short to medium term, it's going to cost us more money. They're already talking about $4,800 per household that we're going to have to pay the CEO every year just for water. And the other thing, which has been publicly disclosed, is that it's going to cost more to pay the board of that CCO than it does to pay our current council. So you're raising some very important valid points. Thank you.
John?
So I say the board members will be legally liable as well. At the moment, councillors are not.
So, I mean, what I just heard from Glenn didn't sound like a great vote of confidence in his staff. You know, we've got 650 real people that work for council. It is not the mayor's job to understand all of this stuff. I mean, no one can. It is about governance and oversight. And I think it was $8 million to set up the CCO in establishment costs. Is it? I think that's what I heard. So that's, you know, we heard about a $9 million saving. We've just blown $8 million of that on setting it up.
You're
So,
wrong, yeah. You're wrong.
so well, let's see.
No, you're just making stuff up.
So what is the establishment cost?
So we're going to do shared services over that time, and then they'll pay us. Then the CCO will pay us back. They'll contract us. We'll be a contractor until the CCO can establish its own systems.
So we'll be still paying for it. So having oversight and governance and asking the right questions is what the mayor and the council should do. They shouldn't be saying this is too difficult, this is too complex. Because otherwise, what's the next complex thing that comes along? What's the next difficult thing? And it's actually quite insulting to hear somebody say, you're not good enough, you can't do this, you don't have the ability, you don't have the knowledge. You know, council is about governance and leadership, is about leading a team and delivering good governance. It doesn't matter what the topic it is.
Okay. Thank you, John. We're coming towards the end, and very soon we'll have sorry, madam, I'd like to go to some other people to ask their question. Yeah.
If you're sending everything, water and sewage, etc., out to a second CEO, and 2/3 of your current costs are to do with the treatment, are you going to reduce the council CEO salary by 2/3 and the staff by 2/3?
Well, the staff actually transition. Oh, sorry. The staff transition over to the new CCO. Look, we'll cross that bridge when it comes with the new CE. Obviously, if there's less work to do, we might actually have to get a new CE because the transition's over the next 2 years. So that's quite fluid.
Just by way of interest, the long-term plan for Central Otago District, where I live, the rates next year are due to go up a little bit more, but the third year, which will be 27-28, the rates are forecast in the 10-year plan to drop 26% when the new CCO with Gore and Clutha sets up. Now, frankly, I reckon there'll be a bloody pig flying across the roof before the rates in Central Otago drop 26%. But anyway, it's in the 10-year plan.
We're getting another letter from a different organisation.
Yeah. Okay. Question?
Hi, yeah, so what my question was really around tourism, as you guys were saying that was the main thing. I've spoken to Matt Wood, who is the CEO of Destination Queenstown, and he told me very clearly his one and only objective was for Queenstown to be carbon zero by 2030, and ultimately we're 4 years away from that. And I mean, I have a ute, most people in Queenstown have a ute or a truck or, you know, jet skis, boats, you know, you name it. We're not exactly a carbon zero place, so that's not going to happen. And so my question is, because I feel as though most of the questions people have asked are really more central government questions, and the things that really the council needs to lobby central government for, and a lot of them are around tourism, whether Matt Woods and his unrealistic carbon zero one and only priority is the right person to be leading Queenstown's tourism, and whether each of you will keep him on and his unrealistic ideas on, basically.
Okay, we'll start down there with John.
There we go. I don't get to appoint the chair of our tourism organisation. We pay for it as a tourism business, and so we're members, and that is for the membership to decide, I guess, who they appoint. In terms of that aspirational goal of meeting net zero, for me, it's a personal action. You know, you can't require it, you can't insist on it, but you can lead on it and you can give examples, and we can all do our own bit. We don't need to shout about it, but I am very, very comfortable with the work that we're doing within my business and the work that our community has been doing up at the head of the lake that is making a difference. And so we just do a bit at a time, and everyone can do their bit, and it's not a, you know, you're good, you're bad, you don't care. You know, I mean, it's a personal choice, and I think that is how we need to look at environmental action. It's something that you subscribe to, it's not compulsory. You can make a difference, and guess what? It actually makes a big difference for your business profitability. So, you know, there's a lot of people who are choosing where they visit and how they get there based on their own personal values. So how we align our tourism sector with the values of people who want to make those choices is really key. And you know, our customers tell us when we've got it wrong, and they'll tell us when we get it right. And I think listening to our customers is a really good start. And I think most of the people that come here would expect, with our environment and our surroundings and the culture of being in Aotearoa, is that we do work to make a difference, and we do work to minimise our impact. And that I think is a fine thing to do, and I think it's a great thing to do, and it's a great example to set.
Pass it to El.
Where's Aotearoa, John?
Sorry?
Where's Aotearoa?
There we go, you're sitting in it, mate.
No, I'm not.
Okay.
No place.
Okay.
No place.
El.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, John, actually I agree with John. We agree on a lot of things, as a matter of fact. You got to drop the reins on people and let them look after their own environment, keep our own side of the street clean. And I've planted thousands of trees, willows predominantly, out. And I'm out there, yeah, I don't care. Even Barry Lawrence, bless his soul, had to agree that they were the only things that were going to hold the river in place. So I'm out there planting trees. My Tahu's Dark River Safari boat goes past, it burns 300 litres per trip per boat, I believe. So you're sort of going backwards a little bit when you're worrying about net zero, you know, carbon zero and what have you. DQ promotes these sort of enterprises, so it's just nonsense, you know. I've never supported Destination Queenstown, I must admit. But however, I do support our old winter festival and all the good stuff that used to be around.
Pass it on to Glenn.
Okay. So the appointment of the CE of Destination Queenstown is up to the board of Destination Queenstown, and the board is elected by the members of Destination Queenstown. Funny thing was, I was on the board of Destination Queenstown, and I was on the CE appointment committee that appointed Matt Woods at the time. The issue about zero carbon, it won't be his only target. being in a room and setting KPIs for that other city of DQ. I can tell you now that there'll be others as well. The actual plan itself and where it came from was over 2.5 years of work with the community, listening to the community, and devising a destination management plan. So contrary to my candidates next to me saying we have no plan, it was developed over 2.5 years with huge stakeholder engagement across this district, and then when it came to endorsement at the council, it passed unanimously. And there are many projects across it, and the main one that we've done in my time is actually looking at the carrying capacity of this district when it comes to tourism, and how you can actually, there's this massive algorithm, mathematical formula behind it. We've reduced it to numbers, but there is some quantitative stuff behind it as well, with Auckland University, Griffith University in Sydney, where we can actually start to see the social licence drop if infrastructure's not keeping up. Now, you know, you're never a slave to a model, but it certainly gives us an indication when it comes to tourism and infrastructure provision. It leads us a pathway of where we've got to go. So there is a plan. We've socialised this across all the RTOs, regional tourism organisations across New Zealand. Luckily enough, this council put in a bit of money, and now we've got a fair bit of IP. We're trying to actually monetise it across the two RTOs and ourselves. It needs stage 2 development, and under the regional deal plan, we've asked for international visitor levy money to actually progress stage 2, and that'll be a step change in allowing us to plan better for tourism.
Yeah, well, Matt's target obviously is a laudable one, but it's probably not going to be achieved, as you say, by 2030. So it's an aspirational target. It's something that probably could be made obsolete by the almost unravelling of the Paris Climate Accords. This is happening at an international level. I think many governments, let alone local governments, might start questioning their climate change objectives in the light of that. But having said that, the Council has done and has got programs in place which address climate change, and these are important. They need to carry on. We need to still push in the direction of trying to preserve and protect our environment. And these include the vast, in fact, the Mayor said the biggest reforestation program in the Southern Hemisphere is taking place on Malcolm's Road. We've got an electric vehicle fleet now in the Council. And we are moving away from gas-fired, or we're moving away from gas-fired heating systems for the pools. So all of those programs are in place. They're all striving to achieve some kind of balance and stability on climate change. But as I say, Matt's target might be missed.
Okay. Alrighty. We're coming towards the end of our sort of scheduled hour and 3/4, 2 hours. Is there one more question from the floor before we get each of the candidates to do a summary? Over the back there, sir. One question.
It's not even a question, really. When COVID was on and the borders opened up, the borders were closed, but we still had traffic jams. And those traffic jams come from local people. And I think you're giving the tourism a hard rap. I've been in tourism 40 years. It's a hard industry. A lot of people don't succeed. It's very aggressive, it's very competitive, but you shouldn't give the tourists a hard rap. They're the bread and butter of this town. And you can come out of Calvin Heights at 8 o'clock in the morning, we'll send coaches out of there. We have to turn left, you can't turn right. We've got to turn left and go back to the airport, go around the roundabout to go back out the other way. So they're all coming from Jack's Point and Hanley Downs. So I think you should start looking locally, perhaps how other people move around. I did create a transport system for Queenstown. It has helped a lot, but there's still a ways to go. I'll keep you on, Peter. Did really well.
Yes, Kush guys, that was a great fieldsman in the slips. All right. Anyway, so you guys want to make some comments on the tourism and how you don't blame them all the time? Nick?
Yeah, well, I agree with you. Tourism is terribly important to the economy of this town and to its cultural and social facilities. You know, this town is only 1/3 dependent on tourism. It's between 34 and 38%. 38% of people are employed in tourism, 34% of our GDP comes from tourism. So we're well varied in terms of our economy, but tourism is vital.
And they spend 400 million in this area. You might not get the money.
2.2 billion.
I'm glad you raised the transport one. I raise that all the time. It's not tourists that are blocking up our roads. It's us. We're the issue. But I will raise this as well. The productivity of tourism in New Zealand is roughly around 54,000 per worker. In our district, it's actually 75,000. And if you have a look internationally, I think it's the Netherlands, Finland, and France that have better. I might be wrong with the French one, but our own studies were done. They have better productivity in tourism when it compared just to our district. I think this district has so much to offer both New Zealand and the rest of the world when it comes to actually improving the incomes and the productivity of one brilliant sector that no AI or technology or let's say computers are ever going to change, because tourism at its heart is about people meeting people. And in such tough geopolitical times where we can share our values across the world, that is New Zealand's soft power. And I think we should embrace it, and I think our values go a fair way across the world. And the real, and this is the non-monetary value of tourism, is the stories that get told about us, our values overseas.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I get on really well with tourists, and I have quite a few turn up at home in one condition or another. We could always use hovercrafts. Ewan?
I might give that one.
That's going back a while. But yeah, you know, the town needs them, the businesses need them. I really don't. For me, COVID was the best time of my life, just about, since I was about 15 in this town rampaging. But however, those days were. But in that COVID period, there was, the internet, everything was alive with, my God, what have we got back? How can we keep it? How can we maintain at least some of what's going on? How can we keep the tuis in the garden and all this sort of thing? And then it was just wiped within weeks when it come back, and the sound pollution has driven all the animal, a huge amount out of town. We're not managing any of it well. It's just a open slather, and we need to somehow or another get the community. I'm here because there is still a thin layer in this community of really good people, but above and below it are bloody average.
So where do I sit?
I'll let you know.
Go get your vote. I'm in the tourism business. I hear, live, and breathe all of this stuff, and it is so important that we get it right. But it is about the experience. It is about how people feel when they're here, how we host them. I coined the term that's in the destination management plan. We don't want tourists. We don't want visitors. We want temporary locals. That's what we really want, and that's what our visitors or our tourists, that they want to feel part of what we do and highly engaged with us on a day-to-day basis. So it's not just numbers, and I think in the past there's been an emphasis on numbers. We're seeing lots of businesses who are deliberately reducing their numbers. We've seen that up on the ski fields, we've seen that on the jet boats. They are reducing significantly the number of visitors, and guess what? They're making more money and everyone's having a better time. So working smart in tourism and working smart in business and working smart in our growth, that's what we need to do.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, John. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're coming towards the end of our allotted time. What I'd like to do now is to get each of the candidates to do just a couple of minutes summary, a final bit of campaigning. The voting papers are no doubt showing up in your letterboxes. I know this has been a very Queenstown-centric discussion tonight because all you guys live there. Perhaps in their final comments, the candidates might like to make mention of what's happening over the hill, because according to their annual report, Wanaka is going to be bigger than Queenstown by about 2030. The full-time population of the Upper Clutha is going to be bigger than here within just a few years, and I think that's quite an important consideration for anybody who aspires to be the mayor of Queenstown Lakes. Also, as a ratepayer in Wanaka, I'm just a little bit concerned about the plans for high-rise and intensification over the hill. The town is nothing like I first knew it back in 1960 when I went there as a kid. We know that there's progress, but I don't want to have it like the Gold Coast or like Surfers Paradise or Mount Maunganui with the high-rises. So just perhaps some comments from each of the guys about what's happening in the Upper Clutha, what could be happening in the Upper Clutha in their summary of why they should be the next mayor of Queenstown. We'll go from number 1 to number 4 in alphabetical order. So Elle, it's you first.
Right then. I done quite a bit of polling, and I got a lot of friends in Wanaka as well, so they weren't just kissing my behind. But I done a reasonable amount of polling over there, and the main concern for Wanaka was the council itself. Every time, almost every time, that was the answer. What is your main concern? The council itself, and so that is why I've focused my campaign completely on sorting that mess out in there. So after that, I don't think anything can progress until we get that right, or right by our standards, not right by their standards or right by $64,000 wage increases, but right by where it's fair enough and we're getting what we pay for. I'm not getting, I'm not out to get everything I can, but I'm not getting anything. So something would be nice.
Yeah, and like a few of the candidates, I was over in the Upper Clutha yesterday, and again, we're hearing the same thing. And if you think the lack of trust and the lack of thought about the right direction for council is bad, it's probably twice as bad in the Upper Clutha. And there's been some steps to try and address that, but I don't think it's making a difference. So there is still the perception that they're not getting a fair deal. They're still worried that they're getting higher rate increases than they're getting over here. There's a perception that money's being spent in the wrong place. Look, whether that's right or wrong, we need to address it. We need to get a group of people together and we need to talk about it, because if we don't start that journey to restoring trust, we will never be one district. And if things are so bad that a significant number of people are having to sign a petition saying they want to leave the district, we've got a real problem. So heal that trust, start that, heal that rift, start the journey to rebuild trust is the most important thing that we can do. And we can do that by showing up, by being over there, by having more staff over there, so that people don't have to keep travelling over here. There's lots of things we can do. I'm sure we'll hear that they're all underway anyway. So let's just get that going and have people who understand the Upper Clutha communities. I've worked with communities in Hawea to help them develop their community plan. I've worked with the community in Lugga to help them develop their community plan. So I've done quite a bit over that. I've worked with the airport users group. I've had a lot of time with them to help them develop their versions of success. I'm very familiar with the issues in the Upper Clutha. I've got a lot of friends there. I understand the community. And so, yes, that's for the Upper Clutha. In terms of a closing pitch, 71% undecided. Hopefully when you watch the video, a few of those will be able to make a decision. The most important thing is that you go out and vote. If you don't vote, you can't complain. That's the bottom line. And if you do vote, you can make a difference. And there's certainly enough people in the Upper Clutha who can make the difference and effectively choose who the next mayor is.
All right. Thank you for that, John. Keeping the alphabetical thing going. Nick.
Thank you very much. Well, Wanaka, of course, is extremely important. The Upper Clutha, as you say, is going to become a very much more significant slice of the pie here. Wanaka already has 8 representatives, 4 on a community board, 4 who participate in the district council. They're well represented when you compare that to the 12 who actually run the entire district. So they have a golden opportunity always to have their views registered, and I'm sure that they do it effectively and they are listened to. They have had a lot of challenges around wastewater processing, but those are being addressed. There are very many unresolved questions around the airport, and we know that that's a very sensitive issue for Wanaka. And these things, they're being addressed. I think that Wanaka will have, if I read the pre-election reporting correctly, they will be receiving, I think it's slightly more than 50% of the budget that the council has in front of us at the moment over the next few years. So financially, they're getting their share. There are issues there which we need to address with them, which are healthcare, wastewater, and the airport. And they have 8 people representing themselves to us, to the 12 who run the council. So we are listening. They are getting their messages across. We will be addressing all of their needs as they arise.
Do you want to make closing pitch?
Oh, well, I will, but no.
Sure. Okay.
What I was going to make.
Well, different.
All right. Well, I know this sounds funny, but I'm a political scientist, and that's an oxymoron. I think that most people would consider it to be an oxymoron. But this campaign has been very interesting from a political science point of view because we had a whistleblower. And the whistleblower blew a whistle on something that all of us needed to have that whistle blown on. And I support that whistleblower 110%. The fact that the whistleblowers came from one side of the political spectrum and not the other, I think has skewed this campaign quite a lot. It's skewed it against those who are not of that political persuasion. And it's almost led to the constituency here believing that it's not possible for people from another political persuasion to deliver an open and honest and transparent council. And what I'm trying to tell you is don't be fooled by the practices of the past. Don't think that the truth only lies on one side of the political ledger. It doesn't. It's something we all share, and I would encourage you to put aside your political differences and realise that all of the candidates pretty much here stand for openness and honesty and transparency in the council.
Thank you, Nick. I'll go one step further, Peter. It's not just about Wanaka Upper Clutha. We're at a real critical junction now. And this is where the regional deals comes in. It's actually looking at Cromwell, Upper Clutha, Queenstown. And as I've said before, and I said this last night when I was over in Wanaka, Tamar and I are at the moment trying to walk in each other's shoes. Look, it's a bit of a tight fit for me, and she probably can't quite get the shoes fitting here at the moment. But we're trying. And I've worked with 2 mayors from CODC at this point. We've got healthcare rolling. That's made some really fast improvements from where we stood. When we look at market flows, economic development, we need CODC and CODC needs us. And we've all got to work together. We're still forming, we're storming. I don't think we're performing just yet. But that's into the future, and that is the focus. Now, when I talk to everyone there on the hustings, I'm always talking about a positive future. We've got to start lifting our gaze and thinking over the horizon. When I'm old and grey, less here, probably more relaxed than I am now, I want my children's children to come here, have those opportunities that I've had, can buy a house, don't have to leave after they've finished high school if they choose. Even though I'd probably be quite happy if my teenagers did fly the coop for a while and then come back. But like I said, I want opportunities local and services close. And I want families to thrive. And that is why I am standing. The opportunity before us is in the next 12 months. We've got a new CE. We've got a regional deal that we have to get done by October next year. I feel I am the only candidate that has the strategic background. I know the deal inside out, and I want that opportunity because it is such a huge opportunity to grasp. And I hope that all of you together will want to grasp it with me. So I'm asking humbly for your vote and to re-elect me as your mayor for the next 3 years. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Glenn, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming out on this evening. That concludes this Taxpayer Union sponsored debate for the Queenstown Lakes District Council. Very big vote of thanks to John Glover, to Al Angus, to Glenn Lewis, and to Kiddle. And I hope that Mr. Undecided can shrink in size a little bit over the next few weeks up until October the 11th. Thank you and good night.
Amanda, you want to photo us off the floor?
Straight, straight, yeah.